It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions traveled to Baltimore to take on the tough Ravens led by Lamar Jackson with expectations at a 40-year high both locally and nationally. However, the Lions came crashing back down to earth, losing in a very rough 38-6 drubbing last Sunday. The Lions need to prepare for the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football next. Some locally are already jumping off the bandwagon, and the national narrative has turned just as quickly on this team in some cases. We'll talk about the loss, the expectations, and preview the Monday Night Showdown next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Jasinski. Drew, this is our Detroit Lions review. We don't have much of a roundtable today, but it's a two-person show here. And joining me first is Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners. Your playoff-bound, Coach Shield. Congratulations on that, and congratulations to your son, David. The Utica Eisenhower Ike Eagles are also in the playoffs, and they had a hell of a season. Both teams 8-1. Looking forward to seeing them this weekend.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Thank you, Drew. Yes, I will. Unfortunately, just like it has been been par for the course for the 9 regular season games with the Mariners, I will not be in attendance. I will be at my son's game, doing on the chain gang. They are getting a repeat of their Week 8 contest with the Chieftains of Utica High School. The home game for Ike played on the campus of Utica High School. Because the field is that they share field with Utica, and it's at Utica High School, just like Ford plays at Stevenson, because the field is at Stevenson. They share a field with Stevenson.
Gotcha.
The pools, however, are at Eisenhower and at Ford. So if you want to swim, you're going to those schools. If you want to, play in the gridiron, you're going to be going to the others. But yes. And it's back to how it used to be back to the original days, just the to and fro with Drew. So it's great to do it with you again, just like good old days.
Yeah. I know I threw us off a little bit. I was actually traveling, so we're a day late on this one. I was in the great state of Florida for a few days, Coach. Didn't get a lot of rays, but it was good to see some family down there. So no Mickey Mousing around, so to speak. Let's get to it. 38-6, Coach. And I'll be honest, I only saw the first quarter in traveling that day, but I certainly saw enough of the highlights and heard a lot from fans and media alike about this one. And my first thought here, Coach, is number one, I was laughing. Excuse my language. I was laughing my ass off when I heard guys like Stephen A. Smith and even Colin Cowherd jumping on saying the Lions are the best team in the NFC, and it's like, they're very good. As a fan, I am thrilled. They are a very good football team. They're a 5-2 football team. They're leading their division. They still have one of the best records in football in the NFL. They lost in bad fashion on the road against a non-conference team. That's a very good football team in Baltimore, Coach. I'd like to get first your gut reaction to this loss from your perspective.
Well, I don't like hearing that they weren't ready to play coming from Coach Campbell's mouth. That's now I kind of get it. I mean, I don't think he doesn't necessarily mean that from plan that they weren't prepared. That's not what he's talking about. But the team just did not come out there with the urgency that they typically do, and I don't know what that's all about. But that's frustrating to hear, though, because those are things of the past, where we'd run out of gas or we'd hit a wall with injuries. And did that happen? I mean, we don't know. I mean, these are the things that we need to answer here against the Raiders here on Monday night. It's unequivocal. I mean, everybody that watched the game saw a team that just was on their heels the entire contest. They struggled, with Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson was touching on all of his passes. There wasn't any kind of errant play or anything like that from him. He was touching on all of them and making the Lions look a little bit silly on a couple of different times. There was one time, I think there was something like 8 or 9 seconds of coverage time. I mean, the Lions could not get any kind of disruption on Lamar Jackson. And they did struggle defensively. But I will say this, and in the defense of the defense, our offense did nothing. Yeah. Nothing. Penalties galore, holding calls. No one really able to kind of impose themselves at all. Jared wasn't particularly, you're going to see some statistics, but statistics be damned on this one. He did not play very good. And he just kind of was solved. He just kind of looked like people kind of wrapped him up and put him in the freezer, for sale. And, that doesn't mean he's done or anything like that, but he was kind of made an example of a little bit in this contest. Football's been a struggle. It was not something that we could do. All the things that are Detroit Lion football weren't the Lion football this past weekend.
Yeah, and for the folks that have jumped off the bandwagon, may you land square on your ass when you hit the ground. I mean, Jared Goff had a bad game, but you can't be an MVP. You can't be a freaking MVP candidate last week and then want him gone the next week. Unless he committed a damn crime, what the hell are you guys talking about? It's like, let's just be real. We're Lions fans first and foremost, right, Coach? And bottom line is, don't overreact to a great start. It's a great start, and this team looks very good. Last week be damned. This team has looked awesome this year, and I fully expect them to be awesome on Monday night against a Raiders team that, quite frankly, doesn't even match up with the Ravens, and they will beat them, in my opinion. But this team is banged up, like you said. They've been able to work through that all the way to this point. This is the first really poor game they've had all year. They had a rough one against Seattle, but they still could have won that game. So this game, just nothing went right. And I guess that's probably where Coach Campbell's frustration comes from. Nothing went well. He shouldered it. That's a leader. I'm sure behind closed doors, and we'll talk about it probably tomorrow on our Chalk Talk, the SBP film room, we'll see some issues and see some examples of what probably should have happened and didn't. But, Coach, you talked about statistics, and here they are. The first one that jumps out to me is 53 attempts. If the Detroit Lions are throwing 53 times, that ain't good. Not at all. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. He is, that's not your typical completion percentage for Jared Goff. He's a much more precise quarterback than that. When he's effective, we're talking about a guy that could throw it 30 times and not miss more than maybe 6 or 7. Here he's missed 20 out of 53. Not your typical completion percentage. No scores. He doesn't have to throw touchdown passes for us to win. We can run them in. That's perfectly fine too. But he wasn't able to get anything done through the air. Where last week he was brilliant. And throwing for multiple touchdowns. Two most alarming statistics for me here are 5 sacks. He took 5 sacks. Some of that's on him. Mm-hmm. Some of that's on him. Okay, our offensive line's dinged and banged up, and yes, the Baltimore Ravens are a phenomenal football program. Okay, that franchise has won for 25 years. They've been fantastic. That's an underplayed organization in pro sports, definitely in the NFL. We want to hang our hats on the Green Bay Packers and the New England Patriots and so on and so forth with these teams that have had success over a duration of time. The Baltimore Ravens, they deserve that more than anybody, led by John Harbaugh. A phenomenal setup there. And it dates back to Brian Billick. It goes well before him. I'm not just, giving credit to one coach, but he's like the modern day Don Shula. How long has John Harbaugh been there? He's been there for a long time.
Yeah, and Ozzie Newsome as the GM. It's working.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So this is a phenomenal franchise. And unless we forget a couple of things too, folks, we aren't quite there yet. I think we can make noise and really show that we are very, very close. But we're getting close. Yes. A couple of years ago, we want to look at it this way. The Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be in the World Series, right? Okay, I think 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago, they both had lost 100 games.
Very true.
Okay. So, I mean, but that was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't believe it was just last year. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. There's a little bit of a process here. It's well underway. I mean, it started last year. This is going to be another one of those years. And, we aren't quite forged to what we're going to be. We don't know what those changes are going to be. But, and I'm not advocating this is the guy that we're going to change on. But.
No. He's been
this was an ugly performance. It was ugly.
Ugly performance, but he certainly wasn't alone in that.
No.
And we'll talk about that. But, bottom line, we all thought they would win this game. We all hoped they'd win this game, but we all knew it would be very close. I think the biggest disappointment from my perspective is that not that they lost, because this was a non-conference road game that they lost coming into the game 5-1 with a healthy division lead. This is one that you shouldn't overreact to unless the unthinkable happened. You either had another rash of injuries, which thankfully it doesn't seem like that happened. They have enough already, but they got blasted. And they put doubts in a lot of people's minds. Like, yeah, once again, the Lions don't really belong. Well, this isn't the same old Lions. So enough of that narrative. Let's move on. Let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, coach. He missed David Montgomery. I mean, there's no question. It's always next man up. I get it. But when David Montgomery has been very, very good this year, Jahmyr Gibbs is getting better. He had a decent game. A lot of the Lions' damage happened. I guess from my perspective, coach, I'm not trying to knock Gibbs or anybody, but a lot of these statistics we're going to see on offense, a lot of that happened in the second half when this game was already pretty much in hand, like 28-0 at that point, correct?
Yes, Gibbs did it. He scored his touchdown late. I mean, that was that 6. It was 38-0. And he scored it late. And so 11 for 68 and a touchdown, 9 catches for 58 yards. He had 20 touches and about 126 yards. That's good. That's good. Is he putting up statistically a ton different than what DeAndre Swift did here? No, not yet. Not yet. It seems and feels a little similar. And what else has been similar so far, Drew? Injuries.
Yeah.
And, so he's out onto the track and running. Jahmyr Gibbs is out there competing. We've got a lot to like here. I don't think we've seen the full steam ahead Jahmyr Gibbs yet. I think he has been dinged a little bit. And that's been, come at a little bit of a cost in production. So, I mean, yes, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is doing well. I think he definitely has replaced DeAndre Swift. And he's replaced him fairly well, but I don't think he's above and beyond. Not yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you, coach.
He's just an accent guy at this point in time.
Yeah. And I mean, what are you going to say, fans? I mean, he is getting opportunities. He's doing.
He's not a bell cow. Yeah.
No, not yet. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love his acceleration. I love that he's rarely brought down on the first tackle. What I'm not seeing yet is a little bit of dynamic in terms of how he moves. He's pretty much been running straight ahead and pinballing, but he's really good at it. Two problems with that. One, you're not gonna be an exceptional running back in the NFL doing that, and two, you're gonna put yourself in harm's way on every carry, big time. So I'm not sure how they're gonna get around that and put him in a situation maybe to help him be more successful with his style. I mean, he's dynamic. There's no question about that. He's going to help this team a lot. And he could start as early as this coming Monday against the Raiders, because he's certainly going to get opportunities at home to do just that. But Jahmyr Gibbs a pretty solid game. I mean, like you said, statistically, he had over 120 yards from scrimmage. So that's a very nice game in the NFL. Like, and you comparing him, that's a lot of times that's what we saw from DeAndre Swift. So that is good, excellent. But when we look at and then here, the one bright spot, once again, Amon-Ra St. Brown keeps doing his thing. He's caught 13 passes for 102 yards, coach. He's just always getting open.
Well, I mean, he really, The one thing Big Ben Johnson was able to do, and it seems like it's for good, at least, in this kind of system, is that Amon-Ra really is the feature of the offense. I mean, it's different in that it's not, we're not featuring him by leading runner. We're not featuring by the gunslinging quarterback throwing it 50 times, although he threw 50 times this past week. But, different scenario that, or some downfield, like the Megatron was, some amazing, it's really a systematic kind of possession style receiver that has, extremely, extremely high end athletic ability and strength, physical strength, that is able to just, put up, regardless if it's a 20-6 win like we saw in Tampa Bay or a 38-6 loss like we just saw in Baltimore, 10 plus double-digit receptions and triple-digit receiving yards. I mean, it's amazing. So I mean, he certainly was a bright spot. His health is something that we need to keep intact, because as long as we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're going to have an active Jared Goff. We're going to have a guy Jared Goff can get the ball to.
Yeah.
And that's, kind of where things stand. There are some other receivers that I'm disappointed in and what they provided the other day, what they provided.
And here's one of them. This concerns me here, and then you'll be able to talk more in depth on it, Coach, but they have 6 targets and no catches. Basically, you did not contribute offensively. That's a concern. What were your thoughts on Williams' performance yesterday or Sunday?
I mean, he made no implant this game. That's a concern. That's a concern. That's a concern. His impact has been fairly light. I mean, it's just even when he does make an impact. I mean, he's I think he's caught 5 passes, 2 touchdowns in his career.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lauding his
around 5 or 6 drops now.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not off to a good start, folks. He's not. And I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's embracing being part of this team. I think he's trying to embrace the city and be part of the Detroit sports community. I just don't know what we have in Jameson Williams. I know we do know that he's tremendously fast. We know that he is physical. He'll block. There are elements to Jamo's game that obviously we love and want, but his consistency has not been there. His health has been shaky, and he's had his decision making that we've all talked about. Right now, all of the injury woes and the gambling stuff, put that all behind us, because that's what they are right now. They're behind us. We're here live and in the flesh in this 5-2 start of the season. And Jamo's catching about half the balls thrown to him. And about half of those balls that he catches have been for touchdowns. So, yes, there is big play capability in Jameson Williams. Something to like. But, no, he has not played very well at all. Not at all.
Definitely got to get more out of him. No question. No question. That's quite frankly unacceptable. But, it is what it is. I mean, they're going to be working on that this week, I'm sure. Josh Reynolds, again, he, only a couple catches, but that's Josh Reynolds' typical game, 2 to 4 catches, 40 to 50 yards, and he finds the end zone at times. But, I mean, not a whole lot to discuss here. Raymond had a couple catches for 20 yards, kind of his typical game. But, again, their typical games also are kind
big
of
conversions on 3rd down, things like that.
Yeah. And they're also like bookended by a great running performance from the backfield and a dominating offensive line performance, coupled with Amon-Ra St. Brown's typical 6 to 10 catches, 80 to 100 yards, and a touchdown. We didn't have Amon-Ra did his thing, but he couldn't get in the end zone, and quite frankly, the run game wasn't there. So it kind of makes them all. It just makes it a little less impactful, obviously. Sam Laporta was able to do his thing, 6 catches, 52 yards. What did you see with Laporta, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, he's a high frequency receiving tight end. I mean, he's physical and he blocks, but I mean, he will a lot of times and then have 5+ receptions. or real impactful long receptions and scoring receptions. No scores this time. That was very much going to be a rare commodity on last Sunday in Baltimore. Where his ability to get in the end zone would have been nice, but was not meant to be. But yeah, solid performance. Sam Laporta didn't do anything to hurt us. I believe he did also have one drop, which that does hurt us. But outside of that, like I said, Sam Laporta had a drop. J-Mo had a couple of drops. You had, Goff taking 5 sacks. You had Penny Sewell getting, multiple holding calls. He didn't have a good game. And that's where I think I can just lie back a little bit and look at this a little bit in a big picture point of view and kind of just say, you know what? This was just an all-around bad performance. This is not one area where a big chink in the Lions' armor has now been, identified. That's not at all. Not at all. We did not play well at all. Heck, even Penny Sewell had multiple holding calls. I understand he's only 22 years old, but he's a dynamic player at right tackle. And for him to have those kind of things happening, just did not it was not our day on offense, that's for sure.
You hit it on the head. I mean, let's face it, even St. Brown and Laporta, those statistical performances really came in the second half when the game was in hand. I personally, after watching a lot of the highlights and having watched at least the first quarter in entirety, I can tell you right now, I didn't see a whole lot of good to talk about. I don't think this is a game you want to necessarily maybe in the locker room. If you're Aaron Glenn or Dan Campbell or Ben Johnson, coach, you're going to obviously point out what happened, but I'm not sure this is one you're going to dwell on because this is just out of character for what this team's done up to this point, being 5-1. This game is nothing like we've seen anywhere in the beginning of the season so far. Your thoughts on that?
No, and I think you summed it up pretty well there. Do we need to take a look at some things? Can we improve this team yet this year? Well, you may have to pay it at a pretty high premium, but you certainly could. What is it that you want to be? Are we at our best when we are running the football ground and pound style? Well, if that's the case, we've got some high priced, highly talented running backs out there that we probably could go after. Mm-hmm. Guys like Derrick Henry, guys like Dalvin Cook, to name a couple. I'm not real big on trying to get somebody that's unsigned at this point in time and bring them in unless, I understand Leonard Fournette's out there. He hasn't played yet this year. Where is he at? How long would it take? Mm-hmm. So those kinds of things, are we looking at a wide receiver now? I don't think that we are. I think we have the wide receivers that we can make a run with this year. Now, Marvin Jones is gone, unfortunately, because I think Marvin Jones is a wonderful person and was real good for that locker room. He had to step away from football, it sounds like, for good, due to a family or personal issue back in California. Wish those guys the very, very best because they're a great family. And I think you will hear from Marvin Jones someday down the road and maybe in a media capacity. Maybe he gets into coaching. Marvin Jones is a quality individual. There is a spot open there. We're going to fill it with a taxi squad and just do it kind of traditionally at this point in time. Is that something that you look to try to make a big splash in? I don't know.
I'm hearing basically the entire Broncos receiving room is up for grabs. And
really, I think there's one that's really preeminent. That's Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy, if you want to look at his numbers, Amon-Ra St. Brown's twice the player he is.
Yeah.
So he's not produced at the clip that many thought that he would. So, they've been provided Russell Wilson, who's an MVP caliber quarterback. So, There you go. There's one right there. We have the Chicago Bears that are probably looking to trim things out. They're not dealing with us. You know, that's just not good protocol there. I mean, Saquon Barkley, you know, what would it take to get him if New York doesn't plan on keeping him around?
I guess you got to ask, you know, how long do they think Montgomery's going to be out? They didn't IR him, I don't believe. So they're hoping they'll get him back in another 2 to 3 weeks max, or they would have IR'd him.
And I guess that in the wisdom there is, and I know Pat Caputo spoke to this on a segment last week on the ticket. And, you know, okay, so then, you know, we do this to replace Dave Montgomery. Dave Montgomery comes back. Now we have both Dave Montgomery and this big horse and a third down type back. It really puts us into a position to be just a ball control, crazy time of possession team that grinds first downs, that is able, that has a running game that's really kind of, you know, non-traditional as far as 2023 goes. It might be more 1983 type, you know, running numbers. And it takes a lot of pressure off of Jared Goff to just make plays, which he certainly would, because, you know, if you run the ball that well, you know, it'd still be disguised. And you still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who could still be the feature of the offense. So, I'm not saying that's the route they should go, but if they really wanted to maximize the 2023 season, maybe picking up another runner and making this truly a run-first offense, accenting with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and you know, some meat and potato passes to Josh Reynolds, you know, and Khalif Raymond having his implant on the game, and you still have a potential home run threat with JMO, you know, but you have these two just, you know, fierce run in between the tackle runners, you know, with Jahmyr Gibbs being able to accent that and do some different things too. You know, you'd really have a commitment to offense there, because, you know, even though our defense did not play well, it did not play well at all in Baltimore. Some of that could be scheme related too. And you know what? Hey, maybe that, you know, we're gonna get to defense. We can talk about some player personnel there as well. There's some good insight to have on that side too. But offensively, I mean, this would just, you know, as Joe Dyrod would say, would not cut the mustard.
Yeah, you bet it wouldn't. Can you relish that, right?
Yes.
I want my comment on the running back situation. I'm all for them adding one. Needs to be an expiring contract. Because they'll be in cap hell if they get a running back that's getting 10 to 15 million a year. That's also on the books for another 1 or 2 years. Cause then I would question the book. But if you can get a guy, and I believe Henry would be one of those guys, and certainly Dalvin Cook would be, who are on expiring deals. Yeah, you can make that happen. I like that. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, to just keep pounding away. You have enough in that receiving room still to do a lot of damage. And getting back to Jared Goff, though, I mean, I guess I've never been, I was never one of those people that thought Jared Goff was the answer. I openly admitted I was not, and I was wrong. But again, you can't call a guy an MVP candidate 1 week, and literally 1 week later, you want his ass gone. What are you watching?
That's a microcosm of today's society. Extreme. You know, and you know, let's let, you know, that stuff's that's for the birds. I mean, if you're in that MVP camp, then I hope you stayed there, because even the MVPs have bad games. I hope you stayed there. And if you're an anti-golf guy, well, then I guess maybe, you know, case in point, you know, the chickens came home to roost. But I mean, that's what it's going to have to be. Jared Goff's the leader of this offense in regards to being the captain of it. He is. That's going to be the deal in 2023. And until Jared Goff loses the 2023 season and the 2024 season because of, you know, performances or the lack of ability to stretch an offense and make a defense miss and make the defense difficult to contain you, and you make plays over the top of the defense, Pat Mahomes style, Aaron Rodgers style, those kinds of things. If that presents itself, that's not a decision that's going to be made because of the Baltimore Ravens game. Okay, that's not fair, nor is that happening. The Baltimore Ravens game could be a case study as to what Jared Goff does not do that well. And if that be something that would mount, and if that just is something that is a reoccurring theme, whenever we lose big games against big opponents, well, then yes, we've got a problem. Yeah. But, right now, there's nothing more than just a case study here. That's it.
They beat a very good Tampa Bay team on the road, a very good defense that had him. They put pressure on him. He played very well against Tampa Bay. I'm not really worried about Jared Goff right now.
No, that's unfair. That's unfair to do.
I mean, because at this point, then the whole thing's a disaster. Then because the O-line didn't play well, the receivers dropped balls, the running game never got off, and Jared Goff played like crap. So basically, this team might as well be 0-6, 0-17. Nah, they're better than that. They're too good of a team. But Coach, let's talk about the defense a little bit here. And I'm not going to highlight anyone individually necessarily, but just some ugly numbers and uncharacteristic numbers. 146 yards on the ground with a pretty pedestrian running game. Not saying Lamar Jackson's dynamic, but as far as their backfield, their running backs go, they were able to get some things done there too, aside from Jackson, and that shouldn't have happened. That they don't have the greatest running back group, but Lamar Jackson's dynamic. Allowing Jackson to get 357 yards passing is a huge concern. He's a great quarterback, great MVP. He's an MVP candidate. He's an MVP winner. He should not be gashing you for 350 large. Allowing 38 points obviously is a microcosm of that. They didn't get any sacks. They didn't get any interceptions. They had only one forced fumble, and only 2 tackles for loss in the whole game, Coach. I mean, like you said, they were on their heels all game. What stood out to you?
No, they were on the field all game too, because that doggone offense could never really extend anything. So that a lot of these numbers are a result of the defense being out on the field so much. They were out there quite a bit. For 357 yards passing, you saw Lamar Jackson at his best. This was a Lamar Jackson MVP caliber performance. This is why he wins those awards. He did not miss. He looked brilliant there. He is likely on this trajectory, probably going to have a gold blazer one day, yellow blazer one day in Canton. But, these were the performances that really are those, teachable, moments for that. He is in regards to how good of a player he is. 146 on the ground, and that wasn't much of it was not Lamar Jackson. They didn't even try it. That was Gus Edwards, and J.K. Dobbins is out. So I mean, they're doing it with some youngsters. They're young. I think it was a rookie was in there just running wild on the Lions. They couldn't stop him. He was like grease lightning out there. The pressure that they played so safe. They played just such safe, ultra stretch contain on Lamar Jackson, thinking that was going to be the answer. They could generate nothing in regards to pass rush. And that's something that we need to talk about maybe a little bit here when we're kind of summarizing the defense, because that can kind of become an issue. I think, as far as when we were lights out on defense, we were at high volume production from the pass rush. This one, it's not like, there's some defense in our defensive scheme with Marine City, and the one that, I work within, we don't generate a lot of sacks, but that's by design. Bill Belichick's defenses don't generate a lot of sacks by design. They generate a lot of incomplete passes. And and there is a little bit of a design to that. I don't think necessarily that's really the Lions' design by the numbers. We know that the Lions do very, very well with high volume pass rush, disruption and statistics. That's kind of where that stands, and, and I think they didn't pressure Geno Smith. They didn't. He picked them apart. He made him look like a Pro Bowler. We didn't pressure Lamar Jackson very much. We didn't. and he looked like one of the, Mount Rushmore quarterbacks of the NFL. So, there you go.
I can understand the obviously you got to respect, especially Jackson, his mobility, his ability to just gash you on the run. But you think it was a situation maybe they showed a little too much respect in that regard? And when you give a quarterback, any quarterback, that kind of time, they're going to pick you apart. And you talked about it off the air earlier. I think the second touchdown, he had over 9 seconds to throw the ball. You're going to get open. Someone's getting open. That's just a given. It's too much. So when we talk about the defense now, we talked about the offense in terms of upgrades potentially. There's a lot of talk out in the league right now. Brian Burns has been out there for a couple weeks now. You've got Montez Sweat and Chase Young now being shopped. Patrick Surtain at first was called, nope, he was untouchable. Now all of a sudden he's available for the right price. I think injury-wise, the secondary and D-line could use some help. I wouldn't have said the D-line needed help if everyone was up and running. When they did get Pascal back, which was nice. Unfortunately, I'm looking forward to Monday night, Coach. I think we could dwell on this game all we want, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It just was an ugly game, ugly performance. They got to learn from it. I think they will. So they move on now. They're going to be in Ford Field. I erroneously said that they were wearing the blue helmet against Tampa Bay, but it's actually going to be on the Monday night game. Was always going to be there. They're definitely wearing it for that game, so we will see it on Monday night. But we're going to see a Las Vegas Raiders team that's going to come in that isn't quite the Raiders of old. It's not the old Oakland Raiders, and they got talent. Let's face it, but they definitely can be handled here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, you're going to have Devontae Adams coming in, and, they've kind of, Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, leads the league in interceptions or turnovers, one of the two. This is not the same offense that they're going to see. They're going to see an offense that has been struggling. But guess what they played against last week? An offense that had been struggling. Baltimore had walked into this game kind of limping, thinking that the Lions, they're going to lock this thing down and it's going to be one of those tight, low-scoring games. But they clicked, they got it going. In this case, though, the Raiders are a little bit more anemic than even what the Baltimore Ravens had proven to be at that point in time. And they're going to be coming into Ford Field on the world stage of Monday Night Football, and those fans will not disappoint. They will not disappoint. They are going to be loud. It's going to be something that they're going to be able to use during the Monday night broadcast to show how loud the Lions stadium is. And yeah, I do think you're looking at bounce back performance. There's no doubt about that. I do think that's something that we can expect to see.
Yeah, and the Raiders are coming off a 30-12 loss in Chicago. A Chicago team that's now 2-5. The Raiders right now are 3-4, which is good for second place in the West, but it's three games back of the Chiefs. So they're in the wild card mix still, and so is everybody at this point, right? But the Lions have a healthy lead in their division now. They're 5-2. The Vikings are 3-4. The Packs 2-4. The Lions will be going into a bye week after this week, so. We talked at the beginning of the year. We were hopeful the Lions could be 6-2 going into bye week, and we'd be thrilled. Well, looks like
very much a reality. Yeah, it's very much a reality, and that was a best case scenario, and we really are. This was the loss. This was the loss. Seattle, we barely lost. We got in that. We lost in overtime, and that was a game that could have went the other way. So that's yeah. 6-2. If we're 6-2, which, like you said, by all accounts, we should be.
Life's good.
We're in good shape. Yeah,
life's good. Let's face it. The one, if you're gonna lose a game, and like you said, other than the 72 Dolphins and the Patriots a few years back, and who didn't finish the job, they lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's been any other undefeated teams. So, the champagne bottle pop. A couple weeks ago, everyone's got at least a loss in this season. So there it is. The Eagles lost to the Jets, folks. The Niners lost pretty soundly to Cleveland with PJ Walker at quarterback. And as far as I'm concerned, my personal opinion, I still believe the Eagles and the Niners are the teams to beat in the conference. I think Detroit's right with them. I think Detroit can play with anybody. But in order for Detroit to beat those teams, Detroit's got to bring their A-plus game with all the pieces intact and be able to catch some weaknesses there, catch them on their heels a little bit. They can beat those teams, but the Detroit Lions can't bring their B-plus game against any team like that and expect a win. It's just nobody can, and it's just not realistic. So Lions are in very good shape. They're lined up. When you look at the rest of the conference, I mean, Philly's 6-1, the Niners are 5-2. So Detroit still has the second best record in the NFC, and quite frankly, it's the second best record in football. Only the Chiefs and Eagles are better at 6-1. And by the way, the Chiefs took that one loss against the Lions. I don't care who didn't play, because nobody gave a damn who was out for Detroit against Tampa Bay.
No, and precisely, and that's the NFL. Not everybody's going to be playing. This is a league of injured players.
Yep. So going into this Raiders game, Coach, I mean, I see it. We'll talk. We're going to do some chalk talk this week with the Ravens game to break down what really what failed, where they failed, where they need to shore things up, or perhaps just schematically where it just didn't happen. We're going to look at that likely tomorrow, folks. So stay tuned for that. But this Raiders team, you respect their talent. Jacobs in the backfield is a very good running back. Devontae Adams is a top-notch, top 5 receiver in this league. Hunter Renfrow is a talented guy. They're a good team, but they're beatable. Obviously, they've beaten the Packers, the Patriots, and I believe the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken. I got to double check that, but they haven't exactly taken care of business against the likes of the Eagles. They beat the Broncos. That's who it was. Packers, Patriots, and Broncos are who they've beaten. They lost to the Bills. They lost to the Chargers. They lost to the Bears. They lost to the Steelers. So they're inconsistent. They're up and down. Garoppolo, I don't know if he's going to even be playing in this game.
That's true.
We'll see. Aiden O'Connell and Brian Hoyer are the backups.
There you go. So,
but bottom line, I don't think it matters. I think the Detroit Lions will win on Monday night. I'm going to call it 30-16. I'm 5-2 on the season. I haven't picked against them all year. I don't think any of us have, to be honest with you. But how do you see this one shaking out, Coach?
Yeah, I see him bouncing back well. I think they're going to center and refocus. I know sounds very cliche, but I think that's what we're going to be seeing. I think we're going to see a centered, refocused team. I think they're going to generate pressure on the quarterback, especially if it's Aiden O'Connell, the kid out of Purdue, or old Brian Hoyer from MSU. They're going to, Brian Hoyer is not the most mobile guy any longer. He's a little bit longer of tooth too. And Aiden O'Connell, you want to, okay, fans, let them have it. Keep that place absolutely buzzing. And we're also going to be generating all sorts of pressure. We're going to buzz his tower, and he's going to be going down. We're going to be getting back into sacks, creating turnovers that way and still staying rock tight on that run. And really making life difficult for Jacobs, for Josh Jacobs. And offensively, I think again, I'm just going to get right back to it, center and refocus. What we're going to find out is if we have enough of the run game to sustain with Dave Montgomery, sidelined. Do we have enough in the run game? That's going to present itself here fairly quickly, and something that we need to look at. Now, I know Jamar Jackson's been re-signed, or Jamar Jefferson's been re-signed.
Yep.
They're taking some blasts from the past and bringing them back, and that's smart. These are guys that understand the culture and the locker room and the team chemistry and understand the offense too, and are of the style of runability that we need. Jamar Jefferson does run. He's kind of a Dave Montgomery light, and we'll definitely take that. And what I think we can look at is being able to center and refocus our defensive game planning and how we like to play defense, especially when we're in Ford Field, and getting the run game going again in the, our true productive, area where we top 100 yards rushing. These are the things that we want to achieve. And of course, a Detroit Lion victory. My prediction, forward down the field, we're winning, and we're going to win big. It's going to be 28-6.
Oh, I'd like that. That's a complete effort right there. Definitely. I'm very confident they're going to come back. Lest we forget, this is still a team that in their last 16 games is 12-4.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
They're not a team that's going to lose back-to-back games. Not with the schedule that we have. I don't think so.
Yeah, and this was one of the toughest games they had remaining on their schedule.
And the whole schedule.
I mean, bottom line is, if you're going to lose a game, like I was saying earlier, if a road game against a good non-conference team, you can handle that based on where they were in the division, where they are still. You just don't like to see it be a complete debacle, which is what it was. And these things happen. I mean, so let's see how they play against the Raiders. We're confident they're going to bounce back and be strong. And then they go into the bye week, hopefully get even more healthier. Big V did come back last week against the Ravens. He's been relatively healthy over the last couple of weeks, but they haven't been playing him. So I'm sure he's still dinged up, but he got in the game against Baltimore. So that's a positive. Rodrigo got into the game as a fullback. So that was one of the surprises.
And kudos to him for embracing that role. That doesn't, and I think an article was written, I want to say by MLive. It may have even been by the Detroit Free Press. That kind of made it sound like he's permanently switched to fullback. I don't think that's the case. I think, he could be the next Nick Bellore, by the way, who's still playing in the NFL. He's, I think, in his 13th year. He's like a Jason Kabinda that can play both linebacker and fullback and a special teams ace. Malcolm Rodriguez could really forge that role and be that here with the Detroit Lions moving forward. But it was good for him to get out there, and it's a credit to what they think of him as a football player and as a member of this team, to get him out on the field that way a little bit more, because he's kind of stacked behind some other good linebackers. And he embraced that whole, in full. So that was great to see. You're 100% right. And that's something that, I think if Jason Kabinda, who we like, I mean, he's our returning, Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's a great man and a good fullback. If he would be sidelined for an extended period of time, we do have somebody in Malcolm Rodriguez right there that's ready to go. Yeah,
it's versatility and selflessness. You got to like that. Those are good combinations. And Campbell all but said that they value the culture that they've established, and they want good players that are also good fits in that locker room too. So they're not going to sell out for some talent and then upset the apple cart. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work in the NBA. It does not work in the NFL either. It doesn't work anywhere. I mean, locker room continuity does mean something, and especially in games like a team sport. You talk about baseball, it's important, but it's not as important as it is. You've got to be working in unison so closely with guys, with your teammates in football and NBA and even NHL. Where baseball is a little more individualistic because you're just not right next to your teammate. You've got your own area to cover, your own job to do. In football, it's so intricate. You got to have that continuity there, and it's just critical. This is a 5-2 team, folks, and if the playoffs started today, they would be, I believe, a second seed still. So the Lions are in good shape. It's a non-conference game coming up, but it's on Monday Night Football. Let's win big in Detroit. Let's be 6-2 going into the bye week, and then we'll be able to talk about that some more next week as well. Thank you, Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners, for joining again. My name is Drew, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Please like the videos. Got any comments? We feel free to bring those up too. We'll be happy to address those as well. So take care, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.